Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber, and I just wanted to make a quick announcement before we get to the second part of the awesome conversation I had with Doug Bossi. So when I originally committed to doing this podcast, a friend of mine made a challenge to me. He said, "Hey, Craig, you need to do 90 podcasts in 90 days. And so I've extended that, and we're going to do 100 podcasts in 100 days. But here's what I'd like from you as far as feedback goes. First of all, thanks for listening. I always say that, but I genuinely mean it. I really appreciate your support and giving me and my guests some time. That means a lot to me. But I'd like to know what you think I should do as far as scheduling goes. I mean, the way this is right now, I just can't commit to continually doing this one a day. I'd love to, but I have other businesses to run that need my time. And so what I'm thinking of doing is putting out 3 episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Content's only getting better. I'm getting better as an interviewer, asking better questions, asking more questions, because that's the feedback I'm getting that people really like, is when I dig deep. And I like doing that, and I don't mind doing that. And most of my guests are really pretty cool about it. So I feel really lucky. But anyway, give me some feedback on what you think about that. Like I said, we're going to run this out till episode 100, and I'm hoping to have a special guest on my 100th episode, and I'm trying to make that happen. Let me know. Please give me some feedback. You can do that. The best way is to hop on over to our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Everyone Loves Guitar. And just post it up on there. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about this Monday, Wednesday, Friday deal? Or you could private message me on Facebook. Either way, I will do my best to get back to everybody. Again, I really appreciate your time, and the support has been overwhelming, not just from you as a listener, but from all the really cool musicians I've had the privilege of meeting and speaking to and having awesome conversations with. So don't worry, we're definitely not stopping the podcast, but 100 episodes in 100 days is a pretty good challenge, and I wanted to keep that commitment to myself because I always keep commitments to myself. And anyway, that's it. As my wife would say at this point, I'm probably going on too much, so I will shut up and let's get to the awesome conversation, the second half of my conversation with Doug Bossi. Thanks a lot. Give me some feedback, facebook.com/Everyone Loves Guitar. I'm out. Now check out the rest of this conversation. Well, let's talk about some of the specifics here. There's a lot of songs on there, at least. I know you said 2, but to me it seemed there's a lot of songs related to war, and like where the music you made was sort of chaotic. Like when you told me the guy called you and he wanted fireworks in the sky, and I'm thinking, you got the right guy for that, man, because you know how to like do chaos really well. But when I say chaos, evoke the mood and the emotion of chaos. Not that the music is chaotic, far from it. It's quite deliberate. But I had a couple of questions. Let's go Unknown Soldier. What was the story behind that one lyrically? And again, it was also a lot of chaotic effects there. You had like distortion, dive bombing, and then I was also curious what guitar you use on that track.
Sure, yeah. Every track has different guitars and amps. I have a big collection, and I need to do more like YouTube videos on here's how I work, because it's always fun, and I'm always sharing that knowledge with other guitar players. But that particular guitar was a 20 anniversary standard stock Strat, and through a Vox head, 50-watt Night Train head. And it's a cool tone. I mean, I wish I could get that tone again. A lot of times I'll record, guitar players will probably relate to this. You'll get a tone up, and Scott Henderson will write down every knob and he'll have it pull it up again. But I don't do that. I just kind of like find it and go, and then later on I'll hear that and go, gosh, I wish I could get that tone again. But that tone I remember was kind of neat. And that was the Fender into the Vox into a 412 cabinet that I bought, ironically, from Eric Johnson. It's a 68 412 cabinet with 30 vintage 30s in it. But lyrically, I love writing with drummers. So without a bass player in the room, you can kind of go anywhere and do anything. So I had Andy Sinisi come by, and I just really love his drumming, and I just wanted to write something with him. So we just kind of started jamming, and it became really quickly this mood. It was almost like a Mahavishnu meets Jimi Hendrix kind of thing. It was really interesting sounding. So we worked backwards where I had the music, and I didn't know what it was going to be about. and then I had the lyric under my feet for whatever reason. Sometimes I'll start scat singing, and that came under my feet, and I thought, wow, this would be a cool idea to write about the unknown soldier. Every country has their unknown soldiers and how they honor the unknown soldiers, and we do too. And if you really look at I started watching videos of what we do at the Arlington Cemetery for our unknown soldier, and even if it's rain or shine or snow, they have a guy out there marching a very specific way, and it's a very honored. And how many unknown soldiers are there? It's crazy. So I thought that'd be a neat idea for a song, and it sort of fit with the mood of the song, if that made sense.
Yeah, totally. Sure does.
So that's how that kind of came about. It was never like, sometimes I'll sketch out in advance, like, okay, I want to write a song about the Dust Bowl, because I just saw Ken Burns' Dust Bowl special. So I know that, that was in the 30s, so I'll write it in the kind of a bluesy thing. So sometimes I'll work backwards,
right,
like that. But Unknown Soldier was the other way, where we had the music, and then I started sketching lyrics, and then it made sense to write it about that.
Cool, interesting that you could reverse engineer a song in it or the same way. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Supergirl, there's an instrument listed on there called a strum stick. What is that? I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Is that a joke, or is that like...
No, it's actually a cool instrument. I went to the NAMM show, and down in the lower area of the NAMM show is a lot of instrument manufacturers that are up and coming or have instruments that are, they don't sell a lot of or whatever. And I went to this booth, and they had this thing called a strum stick, and it's literally a stick with 3 strings on it. And when you play it, it sounds kind of like a banjo. And it's a very interesting sound, and it's very simple to play. So my wife had some pants on that literally said Supergirl on them, and I thought, and I had this, and she was making dinner, and I had this drumstick in the kitchen, and I was noodling around with it, and I came up with this idea for a song called Supergirl, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to write a song called Supergirl, where at the end of the song you sing Stupid Girl, and it's about a girl who commits suicide. So that's really how that song came about, from me noodling with this instrument called a strum stick.
The strum stick, very cool, man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Clown Car. That is just like an amazing song, an amazing video. It also sounds much bigger than it is, in that, like, it's just like a bass guitar, drums, and I guess a balalaika, but it sounds like you got like 10 dudes in there, because there's so much, there's like a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of chaos going on, and it sounds like very, very big, right? So the other thing is, you have this melody that repeats. It's the core melody, and it keeps repeating pretty much throughout the song on different instruments. So I thought that was really interesting how you put that together. So questions, where did the idea for that melody come from, and where did the idea for like each different instrument to be playing it? It's almost like, the wind up Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
It was really cool. So where'd the idea for that repeating melody line come from, and just where'd the idea for the song in general come from?
Well, I was watching the Circus show on Showtime. I was really into the show. It's basically...
What is that?
The Circus show is the guys from Bloomberg and some of the political talking heads that were getting together, and we're going behind the scenes during the election, week by week, and interviewing everybody along this show, and they called it the Circus. And it was like, it had a clown sort of intro to the show. It was very well done, and I was a big fan of the show, and I thought, wow, that'd be a great idea to write a song about this election and call it, Clown Car, because that's how I thought about it. It was like so ridiculous what was going on every
absurd.
Week, right? So, and I actually got to play Trump in the video with a mask on, and my friend's wife played Hillary, and we were actually down in L.A. shooting crazy scenes. Like, I was literally holding, donate, $50, and then I scratched it out $5.
Yeah. No, it was the other way. It was like donate $1, and it was crossed out to make $5, which I thought was really. I liked that, because that was very indicative of the sort of the Trump ethos,
Right. Yeah.
It was like a lot of subtleties there that were cool.
And you couldn't even say Trump or Hillary around anybody without like starting World War III.
I know. You still can't. It's like absurd.
It was crazy. Yeah. So we had fun on both sides. We had Hillary, typing on a laptop in outdoors, in non-secure, typing to Obama.
Right.
We had we had her praying to Chase Bank, and the cameraman's going, guys, we have masks on, in front of the bank. So it was pretty crazy shooting the video, but I was really inspired by the show and the idea of writing a political song. And then I got to say, hats off to the Mustard Seeds guys, because I had the germ of the chord progression, and like we used to write with the Mustard Seeds, I had the drummer and the other guitar player. The drummer is Jorge Palacios, great drummer. He's out with Rick Springfield now. And then George Bernhardt, who was also playing with Rick for a while, guitar player that I was in the Mustard Seeds with. They both came over, and we jammed the idea out, and it was George that came up with the other idea of the melody, and he actually plays balalaika. So he said, let's do balalaika.
What made him pick that? That is like, it's so bizarre, but it's like, man, it's like perfect.
Oh, it's perfect, right?
It's like,
and that's the whole idea too about, like, I can see why Steely Dan had musicians come in. They would have the germ of the song, and then the songs would become better by the musicians coming in and throwing their talent out, So that was a great example of, if I had written Clown Card and did every instrument myself, which, I couldn't play the drums, but if I had done that, it would have been one way. But if I had said, hey guys, here's the idea, and then they started going, what about this? What about that? That's how Clown Card sort of developed. And then Matt Bissonette, who's a great bass player, if you listen to the way he plays bass on the outro of that song, over all the talking head stuff, all the news clips, it's genius. I mean, he's really playing some killer bass stuff. And so that was really getting the Mustard Seeds back together in a way that's kind of like what we used to do. If you go listen to the Mustard Seeds songs, especially the third CD, we were doing, we had a political song on there called Hunting with Cheney. So, you know what I mean?
That was when he got shot. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So we, it was kind of a nod to the Mustard Seeds too. So it was really fun to put that together and then to do the actual video. And I actually got to send it to the guys that were hosting the Circus, and I got back from Mark, one of the hosts. He said, man, love it. Well done, and he was actually rubbing shoulders with all those guys. So, I'm just glad that he liked it, and that was kind of a cool full circle for me to have him like it. And, I was hopeful that they might use it on the show. They never did, but I think the show will come back because it was really well done. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
I haven't. It's called Circus? It's called The Circus.
The Circus on Showtime. Yeah, it's really good.
There was let's have a couple of questions. There was like a place called Clown Liquors or something? Was that?
Yeah, that was in North Hollywood. That's been in a million movies. And it's a big clown outside a liquor store, and I thought, how apropos, right? I mean,
yeah.
And I had a buddy of mine that had a bar, and so we did a scene where, he was, at the time, he was ragging on Mexico, and so we had him toasting with tequila. Like they were in cahoots together at the end, so it was fun to kind of like do the song and then actually do the video and then actually be able to use. You can use, there's I can't remember the name of it, but there's in the back of the video, there's sort of a fair usage license agreement where you can use clips from news and stuff if it's used in a creative way.
Okay.
So that's how we were able to use that. It makes the point, when you watch the video. A lot of times I'll shoot a little bit of the video where I might be in it or not, but I'll shoot something for the video, and then I'll use stock footage to kind of fill in the sections of the video. And in the case of Clown Car, we were able to use actual real news footage, which made it even funnier.
Oh, so you didn't have to, that was my question, you didn't have to pay for those news clips then?
Right.
Okay, but how did you go through them, the process of selecting them? Because it was like, it would seem exhausting to do that, man.
Well, it's funny. You'd think it would be hard, but everything I pulled was so funny.
There was so much bullshit out there that it was easy.
So much, it was almost easy. It was like, oh gosh, I have 5 things here. I got to pick one out of the 5.
Oh, so it was the other way. It was like, which ones do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I did was I recorded a lot of the bass were so crazy when they would start yelling over each other, and then I would just start cutting it into the song, and it was so easy to put it in because it just made the song funnier.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. Okay. The other question I had was at the end, when you have everything going all at once, the music, the news, and you have each person that you then break it out where it's not like all of them talking in a debate. You have like separate, each person. So it was again like very chaotic again. And I thought that was really well done how that whole thing worked.
Thanks. Yeah, I love music that you can hear it 4 times and hear 4 different things. So there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah.
I like simple complexity. If you listen to Katy Perry's record, it outsold Michael Jackson. And if you listen to the songs with a guitar, it's 2 chords. But what it is along the way is ear candy all the way through. There's something always changing, always happening. So I'm always trying to do that and trying to get better at that in producing the songs to where you can hear it like a month from now and go, oh, I never heard that,
Yeah. Well, that song, I listened to it yesterday in the car. I had a drive, I had to go meet somebody, and I was just hearing new stuff. So, yeah, that's 100% true. It was
that's great.
Real good experience, that song. And the other thing I thought was real funny in the video is when you had the Bible upside down.
Right.
That was like...
Yeah, he was misquoting the Bible left and right, so I thought, well, let's get him doing that.
But that was just like the whole concept of, hey, I got my Bible, it's just a friggin' show, man. It's like, I don't really have a Bible, it's just a book. It might as well be a telephone book.
And also the point was too, like she was praying to Chase Bank and he was reading the Bible upside down. Every time you have a political election, suddenly, since George Bush Jr.,
I agree.
Everybody has to cater to the Christian segment of the country. That's just a huge, voting population. So now that's why the line says something like, Jesus loves red and Jesus loves blue. Yeah. Right? So we have to remember that no matter which side you're on, it's kind of sad when it becomes a religious show,
No, totally. And I agree with you. I think that the country, which is I don't want to get into having people troll me and say shit, but I think that administration tended to inject something into the country that was more divisive than not, and unnecessarily divisive, actually. So,
yeah.
Anyway, and I don't claim to know anything about politics or religion for that matter. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I will say this. I'm watching the Ken Burns Vietnam special, and everything he does is amazing. And I'm realizing that why it was so tumultuous in 68 and 67 is for the first time people were watching the news unfiltered, right? So before that, it was nice and clean. World War II was like, war films, and everything was controlled. Now we have the internet. So, when someone says something in Nebraska, some politician, and they tweet, or the president tweets, that was never happening 4 presidents ago. So now everybody's up in arms 24 hours. The news channels are really a reality show.
Oh, totally.
So we're in a whole different sort of world now politically, and that's part of the clown car idea too. Is like, wow, what happened?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. That song totally resonated with me in a lot of ways. Fog of War. You got some really cool acoustic playing there, again with the war theme. And you said the story behind that one was the PTSD guys, right?
Yeah, definitely. These guys come back and dealing with, they're still in the fog of war. And it happened with Vietnam too. But, it's happening now too with all the wars happening constantly. But I detuned the guitar really low. I'm really into Joni Mitchell's guitar playing. And just kind of found that lick, and I just put a looper on, and then kind of wrote the song around the lick. So if you listen to the song, that lick that starts in the beginning goes all the way through. Yeah. So that was kind of fun. And that one, I knew I had to write a song about that. It was kind of hard to figure out how to do it, but once I found the guitar part, then everything came pretty easy.
Yeah, I have a buddy who did like 5 tours in Afghanistan. He's all messed. He's got severe PTSD.
Oh, yeah. Pray for those guys.
It's totally not fair. Lost. There's a lot of religious imagery in there, and it almost reminded me of, do you know that song called Strange Fruit by Nina Simone?
I have to go listen to that again, but I need to watch a documentary on it as well, but I haven't heard that
Nina?
song.
Oh, it's a real, on Netflix. It's worth your time. It was an interesting
documentary. I should go watch it.
But
Lost is a really cool song. For me, I played that on the first guitar I ever learned on that I still have. My mom bought a guitar in 1968. It's a Japanese flamenco guitar, and I remember trying to learn Eruption and stuff on it. That's how I, But I still have that guitar, and she bought it to learn Peter, Paul, and Mary songs, and that's the guitar I learned on. And so I wrote the song. I just started coming up with this like classical sort of changes, and it just became, I wanted to write it, it just became that mood invoked that's the lyrics. And the first verse is about when I was in Spain and got taken to a bullfight, and it was kind of a loss of innocence for me, seeing a bull get slaughtered and everybody cheering. It was like the Roman gladiators or something. And then the second verse is about, lynching, and the third verse is about, the Nazi concentration camps, and just really how lost the world is. So it's very much a song that, it's wild to have grown up, and seen what we've all seen, and now every week it seems like there's some tragedy going
every
on.
week, freaking day. It's like almost
every day,
man.
man. It's crazy. So Lost was just a song that I wanted to do, something with the original guitar that I learned on, and it became a song about that.
A lot of imagery there. Let me just check out these lyrics. This is some of the most intense lyrics I've ever heard. And this is not her original song, actually. She did it. But basically the song's about lynching, and the strange fruit is the dead bodies hanging off the trees. So that's pretty intense, right? Like, check this out. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
Wow,
that's heavy shit.
Yeah,
that's really heavy. But that's what this song kind of reminded me of. There's a lot of that visual imagery there. Hurt Locker, we went over that. Dust Bowl.
Well, Hurt Locker, I'll tell you real quick.
Yeah. It's about your dad, sure.
So my grandfather was a prominent architect in Boston, and he was doing a lot of the buildings there, and he was losing his business apparently, and my dad was getting ready for his prom and putting his tie on, and Heartbreak Hotel was on the radio, and he heard a shotgun blast, and he went into the garage and he found his father, my grandfather, who had committed suicide. Now my dad never told me this story growing up, ever. I just heard my grandfather died. And later on, my dad wrote a book. It's called They Call Me Moose. You can buy it on Amazon, by Carl Bossi. And he talks about, the loss of his father and him finally dealing with suicide and stuff. But I had sort of a tough relationship sometimes with my dad, because I think he was dealing with the loss of his father. So when I saw the Hurt Locker movie, and I saw that and realized that's what my dad was doing, he was dismantling bombs, I thought that would be a great song to write as a tribute to my grandfather and my father and myself, about how he buried us in a Hurt Locker. So that's where that song came from.
Is your dad still alive?
Yeah.
So how did he react to that song, and how are things between you guys since the song? Did it open up a little bit?
Yeah, great. Now I think I learned a lot from reading his book, because he didn't talk about it a lot at all growing up. And so now reading his book, I now understand more about, and it was, suicide hits everybody, but now knowing the story, I understood my father a lot better, and so writing the song was kind of therapeutic too for me. Good. Yeah.
That's good, man.
So that's why that was a military theme song, because he was in the military. And Hurt Locker, the movie, was like such a wow, moment for me to kind of make the realization that I should write a song about that.
Yeah. Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
2 questions there, man. The lyrics, you have lyrics included in your CD.
Yeah, and on the website too. I'm on the YouTube channels.
On the YouTube channels as well. Okay, so for Dust Bowl, all the lyrics are in first caps, and I was just curious if that's intentional. And just for the listeners, first caps meaning every word, the first letter is capitalized.
Or title case, yeah. For me, it's easier to read. So, if you're reading the lyrics, I have a tendency to mumble anyway, but if you're not understanding what I'm singing, then I thought, well, if I'm going to put these lyrics, I'll do them in title case, because it's sometimes easier to read.
But that's the only one. All the others are not. That's why I was like, is there a reason? Yeah,
then there was a mistake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you just need some anal copywriter like me to look at it and notice it. Yeah. I was like, man, I thought, because like everything is so deliberate on the album, I was like, oh, this is a Doug trick, right? Let me ask him about it.
That's a good catch. I never caught that.
That's all right. That and $1 or whatever will get you on the subway.
But 10 Years of Hell in Our Dusty Cell, basically, from the greed of so much farming came the fact that there was just dirt everywhere, and these huge, these huge dust. They look like a tidal wave, almost like when you see the Mummy movie and the ocean of sand is coming across and the mummy comes out. That's really what they dealt with for 10 years. So that's why 10 years in our 10 years of hell in our dusty cell, they kind of created that by being so greedy, by plowing up the land. And so after that, there was a great migration into California. And, if you watch the Ken Burns Dust Bowl documentary, I had no idea about the history of that. So when I watched I was like, oh, that'd be a great song idea. So that's why 10 Years of Hell in Our Dusty Cell and the Grapes of Wrath kind of idea.
I think at this point, either you need to have a wing of your house named after Ken Burns, or he needs to have a wing in his house named after you.
He's amazing. Yeah, he's one of my heroes. But I find inspiration everywhere, really, from books to movies to meeting people. It's just whatever kind of brings a song up. I mean, it's one thing to write a song idea or a lick or something, but then to have to come up with the entire scope of the melody and the lyrics. And I learned a lot working with Joe Barresi, who's a great producer. He's done Queens of the Stone Age and Tool, and he actually mixed the song for me, the Memento Mori, the tribute to Chris Cornell and those guys. And I first sent him over the first batch of lyrics and the vocal, and he goes, no, not good enough. And he was the first guy to actually push back and said, you can do better. You know what I mean? So because he was friends with Chris, he was supposed to do the Soundgarden record in January.
Oh, wow.
And so he really wanted to make it good as well, as best as it can be. But, I realized that it's a whole different thing when you have to conceptually come up with a whole song versus being the bonehead guitar player guy that,
Oh, yeah, and then tying the two together. It's not easy stuff, man. But let me ask you this. So you do this record, it's great, and then you switch producers.
What do you mean?
Well, he didn't produce this record.
No. I kind of self-produced this one. I'm self-producing the next one. But when, he was mixing that song, I asked him, because I really respect Joe. I said, I really want this to be great, and he was he's very honest. He would tell any of his the people that he worked with, he would just tell them honestly what he thought. So he was great about kicking it back. And sure enough, I went back and rewrote it twice, and it was better in the end, So I wish I had that for, I think any artist or musician like Alan Holdsworth couldn't listen to what he played the night before. He was really self-deprecating that way. But I always hear stuff and go, wow, that could be better.
I think that's normal. I read shit I wrote. It's like from years ago.
So I want this next CD that I'm doing to be a progression up, and a bit different, still diverse, still different musicians. But, I want it to just be better. And by the third record, it's funny when I find an artist and I go back to their first record and you can kind of hear a progression in the CD.
100%.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. So I'm trying to grow as well myself, as an artist. So.
Last song, Clock Strikes 12. That's an awesome ballad. Close out the CD. Anything in particular about that?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a cool guitar riff I came up with.
Yes.
This would be cool. And then, everything's so dark on the record. I thought, well, let me write it about a breakup or, a relationship breakup. And that's pretty standard, but let me do it in the Train way. Let me try to tie in the Train song idea somehow. And so, that became a kind of a cool excuse to blow a little bit, a solo on it. And I shot the video in Nashville, and I literally stood next to a train, and at one point the train flies by me, and I didn't realize it was and the guy was like, okay, don't move. And it was terrifying because the whole ground was rumbling. And I thought, man, if there's anything hanging off of this train, it's going to swoop me off, and it's going to be
your toast.
The end. Yeah, toast. But yeah, that was a fun song to do. And I had the great Tony Franklin on bass. I played with Firm and Kenny Wayne Shepherd. He's so many guys. And you listen to that song, you listen to his bass sound, and he also played on Dust Bowl. He has this really cool growl that he gets out of the fretless bass that no other bass player can get. So that's the other cool thing about working with some of my favorite musicians is that they bring this other thing to the song that I could never do if I try to do it all myself.
Well, you seem like very comfortable and very natural for you to reaching out for help, which is wonderful, which is how you really get stuff done, as I've come to learn, for sure, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you grew up all over the place. What was your childhood like? Just, I guess, was it hectic or?
Well, moving every year was kind of interesting. I mean, I didn't know that was not normal. So I didn't, I can't say I have, Joe's my friend since age 1. I really don't have that until I got to Florida, and I have a lot of great friends that I grew up with there. But I thought it was normal, I mean,
sure.
I was in Germany, Turkey, Japan. I was all over the place, but I felt like it was normal. And then growing up in Fort Walton Beach, that was like, they call it the Redneck Riviera.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. It was a beautiful place to really grow up in as far as my formative years. And boy, I wish I had bought any piece of grass down there, because now it's all so super expensive. But it was a great place to grow up. And again, growing up with records and radio, and we all had this shared experience, and paying $10 to go see Frank Marino and Styx and Van Halen. I saw Van Halen on the second and third tour. That was a magic time to grow up and playing music. So yeah, childhood was great.
Do your folks still live there?
My mom's still there. My dad's in Southern Florida, and so I still go back to Fort Walton and kind of visit. Yeah, it's great.
Cool. You've had a really very robust full career. If everybody pays tuition during this time, what are 1 or 2 mistakes you might have made that you learn, and what were the lessons you learned from those mistakes in looking back?
Sure, I think as a young man, especially wanting to get as good as I could get and being fairly ambitious, I think I might have hurt some people along the way. That in hindsight, I wish I could go back and have fixed that.
Hurt them like in relationships or
relationships by having to leave to go to a gig, or literally move to another town and the person didn't want to go or whatever that was. So that was the one thing I think, I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't done it, but the way I did it, I think I wish I could have been a better person in how I did it,
Yeah, I totally get that.
That's the same for a lot of people, I think,
Yeah, I think you get more empathetic to others. If you're introspective and looking to develop, you realize I did that shit a lot too. I wish I was a little more. I was a bit of a bull in a china shop. I wish I was a little more
right.
Tame and just empathetic and not a dick.
Yeah, I think if you ask that question to everybody would have something in their lives.
Sure.
They said, yeah, I wish I could go back and do that again. Or I wish I had done that better.
Yeah. For sure. What about the other side? Is there 1 or 2 things that you did that at the time, it was a big leap of faith for you, but you did them anyway and they turned out to be huge breakthroughs? Yeah,
moving from Austin, Texas, where I was playing and making a living, and getting called from the Bissonette brothers to say, hey, we have no money, no record deal, come on out. Literally having to borrow money from a friend to get out there. And that was a total leap of faith. But I knew that if nothing happened, I was going to learn from these great musicians. So I knew it was a good thing to do. But it was,
Yeah, I could see. That's awesome. Yeah. So basically, if you can go back and give advice to your younger self, what advice would you have given?
I would have moved to a bigger city like Austin or LA earlier. I spent a lot of years in smaller towns, which was great. I was making a living. I'm not complaining, but I think I would have tried to do. I was terrified actually to go to the bigger cities because I was like, how am I going? After seeing Scott Henderson and Frank, there's no way I'm going to get a gig, right? So I was like, I'm a big fish in a smaller town kind of thing. I'm making a living. Why risk that to go? And, now I realize from being in a bigger city, I should have done it earlier. So if I could have talked to my earlier self, I would have done it earlier.
You know, I had an interview one time, and I wish to goodness I could tell you who told me this, but they said a secret about, you know, the room full of the 10 best musicians in the world, they're all scared shitless about the other 9 musicians.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
You know, so it kind of echoes what you're saying now. You know, it's like, you know, Matt, your perception is that they're the best, but their perception is, man, I got to get my shit together.
Yeah.
You know, and that is a young man's sort of, you know, thing, for sure. Okay, let's talk about some gear. What's your go-to guitar now, and what other 2 or 3 guitars or 4 guitars would round out your top list?
Yeah, it's funny. There's a Boston guitar player named Tim Miller. He teaches at Berkeley. He's amazing. He's like one of my favorite new players, and he plays. He played an old Klein guitar, the headless guitars, and Alan Holsworth was a headless guitar guy. And there's a guy named Rick Canton out of New Mexico that builds these custom guitars. So I had him build me a guitar, which I love, and I play a lot. But I would say that my Desert Island guitar is still a Fender Strat. I mean, of all the things I own, I have Les Pauls and SGs and 335s and all these different guitars. But when I pick up a guitar, 9 times out of 10, it's a Strat. You know, I just recently bought on Reverb.com. I bought the Michael Landau. I'm a huge fan of Mike, and I bought the Fender 68 replica, you know, his model, and there's not a big Michael Landau signature.
Who is he? I've heard that name. I don't know why. I don't know him.
You can't have a guitar, but he's amazing. He's a guitar player that grew up with Steve Lukather, and when Lukather was 18 and had all the success with Toto, he was the other guy that, you know, he's equally played with everybody and recorded with everybody. He's one of the session players in LA, one of the top guys. But man, if you ever see just look him up on YouTube, and he plays out. He's one of the most amazing guitar players out there, tonally, and he writes great music. And so, yeah, I bought one of his Fender models, and I really love that. It's my latest guitar I bought, you know, the Fender Strat, and it's awesome. Yeah,
very cool.
I mean, I think one of my all-time guitar heroes is Jeff Beck, and he can do anything on Fender Strat.
That guy's crazy. So, it's crazy what he. How do you?
He could do it all. I mean, so, you know, a Fender Strat really, you hand Jeff Beck a Les Paul and a Telly, and he'll still make amazing music. But for some reason, the Fender Strat, it's like the Stradivarius of guitars in a weird way. You know, it's like you can do anything with it. So, yeah, I still love that guitar.
I'll tell you, you listen to Beck, it's almost, I don't know how he does. I mean, and he's doing all of it without a pick.
Yeah, what's great about Jeff Beck is that, you know, when we're all listening to Van Halen, you know, there's a lot of musicians that became musicians from watching the Beatles, and I was too young for that. So I came next with a big group of people that heard Van Halen 1 and was like, what is that, you know? And so Eddie Van Halen, every record, he was doing a new sort of Spanish fly guitar thing, and he was always constantly growing. And then after a while, he stopped doing that. But Jeff Beck, every record, and he's 70 or something now.
Yeah.
He still plays something or does something that just, you know, like what would Jimi Hendrix be doing? And Jeff Beck has shown all of us that you can get better as you get older. And he's just one of my all-time heroes for that, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Incredible.
It's funny you had that Jeff Beck album on the wall. I have all the same old Jeff Beck albums. They're really cool, man.
Yeah. Killer.
Is there any cool or interesting stories behind how you got any of your guitars? I mean, you've been all over the place. You must have like picked one up in a hidden shop in Tuscaloosa or something like that. Yeah,
it's a good point. I had a buddy of mine call me the guitar player that replaced me in the Electric Gypsies band in Texas. He was working at a music store in Austin, Texas, and he said, hey, we got a 68 mint 1968 Gibson SG. Do you want to buy it? You know, it was like $2,500 or something crazy. And he said some guy had it under the bed. His dad owned it. And I said, sure. So he sent it. You know, usually I like to play a guitar and feel the neck and plug it into an amp. But I bought that guitar sight unseen, you know. So that was the first time I bought a guitar over the internet. Then it was a good guitar. I mean, it was everything you thought it would be. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. I was a big Frank Marino fan, and he played that model. And, you know, so that was the first time I ever bought something sight unseen. And since then, I've bought several guitars that way, or ordered guitars, you know. So, yeah, that was probably the first time I was kind of like, what am I going to get here? And I was pleasantly surprised.
That's cool. Yeah, it's hit or miss when you buy them online because it's like,
Yeah, for sure. And then, because of the TV stuff and the Echo Circle stuff, I'm working on a song about King David. And I don't know the name of the song yet because I'm still writing the lyrics, but I bought an oud from Turkey, a custom-made oud.
What is that?
The oud is the original instrument that predates the orchestra, much of the orchestra instruments. It predates the lute, predates the guitar. It's you play it with it was like a feather, but it's a Middle Eastern sounding instrument with it could be 5 or 6 strings tuned different ways, but it's fretless and it's a beautiful guitar sound, and that's what King David was playing back in the Old Testament. So I thought if I'm going to write a song about King David and all his faults and pluses and minuses, I better have an oud. So I bought.
So you're a method actor. You're a method musician.
Yeah, and I had to literally buy it to learn how to play it. In fact, that oud is on the first CD on Fog of War. You hear that sound? Da-da-dum.
Yeah.
That's an oud. So that's me playing the oud. Never having known how to play it in an oud, I figured out that lick. Same with the We Ride Again. My mom actually sent me a Native American flute, and so I learned how to play it for the song. So that's me on the flute. So sometimes I'll have an idea for a song, and I'll just get an instrument and kind of figure it out to just, to
fit it into. It's funny how things like, and I've had things like that happen in my life too. Things sometimes show up, like I don't know, and I as I've gotten older, I try to listen like to the universe and say, why did this suddenly happen? What do I need to get out of this thing here?
Right.
How do I need to fit this into something else? I don't believe things are random.
Exactly. Yeah, me neither.
I mean, you've mentioned so many of them, but who are your biggest influences guitar wise?
Well, when I was 17, I got to sneak in to see the Dixie Dregs at a club, and I don't know how they let me in, but it was pretty mind blowing. Being 10 feet away from Steve Morse. And again, seeing Frank Bali and Scott Henderson, Alan Holdsworth when I was growing up, Eddie Van Halen, Frank Marino. More recently, Chris Thiele, who's a mandolin player, is a huge influence. Tim Miller, Guthrie Govan. I mean, I could go on. I mean, there's so many great players. But I really liked, growing up, I heard a lot of rock, and that led me into fusion. And then from fusion led me into jazz. From jazz, kind of everything opened up. But I wasn't a big blues guy living in Austin, but I heard a lot of great blues, and so I really appreciate and love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I had to play it for, in clubs and stuff. But yeah, I just, I think if it's done well, I heard Yngwie Malmsteen. Somebody handed me a cassette of Yngwie from the first Alcatraz CD of just the solos. And I had a reel-to-reel player, and I remember slowing it down to try to learn this stuff. And I was like, "Who is this guy?" There was no internet.
Yeah.
So I was kind of fortunate, to kind of grow up in a magic time where people really wanted to learn how to play guitar, and there was a lot of great heroes, out there, and there still are. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Top three favorite albums. What's the first 3 that come to mind?
Oh wow. Kevin Gilbert's Taming of the Shrew, or Shaming of the Shrew. That's a great record. And he was the guy that started Toy Matinee, the band, and he did solo work, but he was a big Peter Gabriel fan. So he, as a musician, that's a great record that comes to mind. Any Jeff Beck record, and any Stevie Wonder record.
Stevie Wonder, interesting. How did that get in there? For the variety?
Yeah, I haven't done that yet on my solo stuff because I really, I could sing soulfully, but not like that. But I love listening to him. As a musician, he and Prince were huge influences in that fact that they played multiple instruments and wrote and sang everything.
Well, he's got a lot going on, a lot of different things going on. I mean, just for example, Just Enough, that song?
Yeah.
Living in the City. I'm sorry, Living in the City. He's got all the sounds in the background of all the kids in the playground. There's a lot going on in his records as well. So I can see, like, your why you like him so much, because you do that really well in your stuff. All right, man. Let's get to the therapy part of the show. Something or someone you miss from your childhood.
I've had a lot of friends, that I've lost. I had a really good friend named Ronnie that I lost. In fact, I'm doing a song for him and another friend of mine, Johnny Button, who were both drummers in my marching band growing up. I played French horn as well in the marching band. That's where I learned to write or read music. And both of those guys have passed away, and I'm writing a song called Ghost Town. And I actually went back to Fort Walton Beach and filmed all over town because there's a lot of some abandoned buildings and stuff. And I'm writing a song for them, and the song will end with a marching band drum, and I'll sing when Ronnie comes marching home again, when Johnny comes marching home. So
nice,
those
man.
guys I miss. I'm being older now. We all have losses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry for that, man.
Oh yeah, we all So So those are two that come to mind. I could list more.
Ghost Town. I look forward to that, man. Happiest moment or time in your life so far?
Oh, good one. Two really. Two that I can remember. One is when I was 17, 18. There was a great guitar player named Steve Spade, who was a Christian guy from my hometown, and I'd always go to him and say, "Hey, man, show me this lick. Show me that." He'd go, "I'll show you that when you go to church." And I was like, "Nah, I don't want to go to church." I was never a church guy. But the first time I went to church and kind of really was moved by it and understood and kind of got illuminated by just the concept of Christianity and all that, that was a big changing point for me. And the second time is when I got married to my wife. I was married once before, and that was one of my regrets, having moved for music and sort of marrying music at the time. But when I met my current wife of 20, going on 21, 22 years now.
Dude, congratulations, man.
Thanks. Yeah. Meeting her was a big change for me. That was a huge happy moment for me, that I could have music in my life and be married to a amazing woman. So that was two spots in my life that were kind of defining moments for me,
Good for you. It's funny. We talked about that before, man. Before the call.
Yeah.
No, about wives in the music industry.
Yeah.
Right. Like when I published I had an offline newsletter, a marketing newsletter for 10 years. I interviewed a business guy every month. I don't think one person ever said, meeting my wife. Now I would have said that because that's my kind of highlight. But
well, I got to say, my wife is my business partner too. So in the iSpy and the DMC. So I mean, behind every great man is a better woman.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So for me, I've learned a lot from her, and I've been able to do what I do because of her.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Most important thing your dad taught you?
That's a good one. My dad was and my mom both were very great at what they did. My dad was a great military Air Force, EOD. He worked his way up the ladder, started from nothing there, and was a lieutenant colonel at the end. So his work ethic was really great. And my mom's too. She was a nurse, and when they got divorced when I was a kid, they both were working hard, and they both were great role models for showing me how to be passionate and do something that you really like doing. And they were both encouraging in my music, even when they were probably like, "Oh my God, my son's going to be a musician." They were both great. So I got to say both of them, I learned a lot, probably more things than I could say, just kind of from osmosis and, along that lines,
How old were you when they split up?
I was 14, I think, and my sister is she's a couple years younger than me. She's a big associate producer. She's working on the new Lion King with Jon Favreau. She finished up, she's done huge movies. She just finished up the Kong Skull Island. And she's able to work with multi-million-dollar budgets and lots of personalities and do amazing work in what she does. And I think also she learned that from watching her parents do what they do,
That's really interesting that both of you are excelled at a high level in creative arts, and neither one of your parents were in creative arts. Did they have like hobbies? I mean, I'm sure you had music around the house, but did any of them like have a passion or a pursuit?
My mom bought that guitar. She played piano, and she played classical music for me in the crib in hopes that I would become a classical musician, ironically. My dad was a big jazz buff. My dad loved jazz. He loved Dave Brubeck and listened to all kinds of music. He was always into music. So, I definitely, even though they didn't actively play instruments, they were very music fans.
They had the passion, the fire for music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good,
Yeah.
man. What's your superpower, Doug?
Wow. I don't know. I think if I had to say I had some sort of superpower or you know, blessing in my life, it's being able to, I mean, musically, you know, I feel like I've worked hard at it, but I feel like I can sit down and kind of approach anything musically and do that. But also what I've tried to cultivate is, as I've gotten older, is a pay it forward mentality. And I really want to get better at that. I just watched a great documentary on the co-founder of Paul Mitchell Hair Products, John Claude, I can't remember his name, but he's the face. You'll see him as the face of Paul Mitchell. But I remember hearing a story of him making his first $1,000 with the company. He was living out of his car, and he was giving it away, and he didn't know if he was going to make any more money. And that, as I get older, I want to get better at that. It's not a superpower or anything, but I really hope I could be more empathetic and more giving as I get older, because we never know how much time we're going to have. I mean, I could, you know, I could be gone tomorrow. So,
sure.
You know, I'd like to say my superpower would be helping others, you know, as I get older, and try to do that in a bigger, better capacity.
Yeah, man, but it seems you're like making like really good strides here with the, you know, working with the veterans, writing that song, doing the thing with the American Indians, man. So it sounds like you're taking action, or actions coming to you that allows you to kind of fulfill that thing, which is awesome. Yeah,
try to, you know, I recently was watching this guy who's made a great living buying and investing in residential assisted living houses, and he said, "Do good and do well." And I thought that's
where you got that from. Yeah, you talked to me about
that's a great statement. You know, I would like to be able to do that as I get older. You know,
I'm going to write that down, because I liked it before and I didn't write it down.
Do good and do well. Yeah, you know, so whatever you do, it doesn't have to be financially. I mean, just if you help somebody across the street, whatever, you know. So that's been a cool thing I've learned lately.
The funniest answer I ever got from that, I asked a guy, younger kid, I said, "What's your superpower?" And he was from Quebec. He goes, "If I want to pick up a girl, I just talk French." Man, when you're 27, that is a superpower, right?
That is a superpower.
I was like, right on, dude, right on. You have any hobbies outside of music?
Yes, I've recently I've taken up archery.
Very cool.
I really love, I don't know what it is about archery, but I'm really getting into archery. Been getting into bicycling.
What prompted you to take up archery? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, I watched a movie. I can't remember which movie it was, and there was an archer in it. You know, there's a lot of movies with archery in it, but something about that sort of led me to the internet, to YouTube, to start going, Olympic archery, what's this? And then let me take a lesson, and then wow, you know, really getting into it. So if I had, you know, more time, I would spend more time trying to do other things. But archery has been one, and then I had a motorcycle, and I still motorcycle occasionally, but I bought a bicycle after watching the movie about the doping with
Lance
Armstrong. They did a movie called, I can't remember the movie. I'll pull it up real quick. Anyway, that got me into like, oh wow, biking, you know. If I name the movie, you might go, oh yeah, movie about Lance Armstrong.
So do you ride now for like fun, or do you ride like regularly for exercise and fitness, or?
It was called The Program, was the movie. Great movie, by the way, about Lance Armstrong. So I bought a bike after that and started biking around, and then I actually got into setting it up and doing an indoor sort of training thing. So that's been like kind of a nice hobby, you know. So yeah, between archery and that, those two keep me pretty busy.
Cool. Do you normally do fitness, or this is like your first time you're sort of like committing for fitness on a regular basis?
I've kind of always done it, but I'm not Mr. You know, exercise guy. But I try to go to the gym and try to stay in shape. I think as you get older, you have to.
Man, or suffer the results.
Yeah, exactly. The quality of your life, I think, in your later years will be determined by your activity level in your younger years.
Man, sometimes I'll be looking at Facebook and I'll see people I went to high school with, and I'm sure some are listening, and I apologize for what I'm about to say. And I'll call my wife over there and I'm like, babe, please tell me I don't look this bad.
Yeah.
And she's like, no. And I mean, not that I don't look my age, but at least I've like put some effort into like maintaining my health at least, you know? So,
I think you just feel better too when you exercise.
More better, confident. Your mobility
quality
is
of life. Yeah, you don't have the fog on, you know? So,
never.
And the most recent thing I've done is bought a violin. I bought an Italian-made violin to learn how to play the violin as an inspiration. And I wish I could take many years off and just play and study instruments. That would be kind of a dream. But yeah, so that's a new hobby, is trying to learn the violin.
Very cool, man. I was going to ask anything you're trying to improve on, but you're like a perpetual student, which is awesome. So I'm not going to waste your time and ask that question because you're always working hard. If heaven exists, what do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, and what's the phrase that? Well done, good and faithful servant. That's what I like to hear him say.
Somebody else told me the same thing.
Yeah, that's really what you want.
Yeah,
you
don't want like
seat left. You know.
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
Yeah, you get on the door that way.
What's the toughest decision you ever had to make, or the hardest thing you ever had to do?
I think it was at the point when I was married the first time, and I had to make the decision to kind of carry on and keep moving forward in the music, and kind of making the choice to stay married to music instead of being married to a person. And that, you know, that was a tough decision at the time. You know,
yeah, I'm sure.
I don't, you know, I've been blessed since all then, of course, and I wonder what my life would have been like. But I really don't wonder too much, but you know, about what ifs. You know, I try to. A lot of people get bogged down in that, but yeah, that was definitely at the time. That was a big, you know, big fork in the road. Do I go left or do I go right? You know,
it's funny. There's a movie about that. It's a silly movie, but it's really not, with Gwyneth Paltrow. It's like a love story. It's called Sliding Doors, and the movie literally shows you like what happens if she walked left versus what happens if she walked right. So it was interesting because, you know, it is something that I think everybody gives consideration to for fleeting time only. Like, I don't think a lot about that, and yeah, unwinding a marriage is a really tough decision.
There's a great movie called The Apostle. Robert Duvall plays this sort of, you know, not less than perfect preacher, the apostle. And there's a scene where he's on a bus, and he gets off the bus, and he looks up, and the whole movie he's arguing with God, you know, out loud, and he's doing all this crazy stuff. And he gets off the bus, and he goes, all right, do I go left or do I go right? And I remember watching the movie thinking, wow, that's really how we should be every day. You know, we can drive the car ourselves. But I think, like you said, nothing happens by chance if you sort of let go of that.
Yeah.
And trust, amazing things can happen if you do that.
I think there's a lot of I think being on autopilot is dangerous, and I think the biggest problem that people have is a lack of, not that I'm got my shit together by any stretch of the imagination, but like I think a lack of awareness is really, you know, most people are walking around in fogs because they either choose to be, or sometimes they don't have the capacity to be aware, and I think you miss a lot out of life if you. Well,
especially when we're all praying mantises with our, you know, typing on our phones, right? You know, it's like crazy. You know, everybody's so not in the room.
Oh, it's terrible, man. I remember my daughter. I snapped this photo when she did cheerleading. I don't know, 5 years ago, and it was her 3 or 4 friends came over, and they were all sitting in the room on their freaking cell phones. I took a picture of that. I was like.
Yeah.
I was like, don't you guys talk to each other? They're like, and they just looked up at me and like went back, put their head back down.
Yeah.
It was hilarious, man. Oh,
yeah, it's crazy.
And then you see people like, I drive a truck, man, and I'm driving, looking around. Everybody's texting on the freaking highway. I'm like, holy shit, get me the hell out of here. I'm staying
That's one of the reasons I stopped riding a bicycle and a motorcycle in the streets, because it was getting, you could just feel it now that it's a whole different thing. You know?
Yeah.
Like people pay attention.
The incremental chance, it's gone up dramatically, the chance of getting plowed over, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Nutty.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug, who's had the biggest influence on your life?
I'd want to say, I would say Jesus. You know, I mean, I hate to sound like a cliche, but when I changed my life to believe in that Jesus was around, and he was really a real person, a real thing, a real entity, he was right there. That changed everything for me. So, if you look at a flower from a 360-degree view, everybody's going to see the flower from a different vantage point. So even all the 12 apostles looked at Jesus differently, and we all see him differently, and we all, whatever we believe he is or not, or whatever your God or your faith or non-faith is, for me, when I found for me that was my truth and my, that changed everything. I mean, everything was run. Everything was run through the filter now of, do I go left or do I go right? And now it wasn't my decision. It was, okay, well, great. If I go left and a tree falls on me, well, then that's what's supposed to happen.
Right.
If I go left and I win the lottery, well, then that's what's supposed to happen. And as a result of that, I have a great peace in my life,
So it took a lot of stress and anxiety off you that you used to carry.
Yeah, and I think, the gospel means good news. I mean, not to get into a preaching thing at all, but, at a very basic level, I went to go see the movie The Passion of, that Mel Gibson did, which was a heavy movie to watch, And I remember I was leaving the theater, and there was a couple in front of me, and the guy looked like you just told him his mom died. And there was a trash to his left, and he had a full popcorn and a full Coke, and he threw the trash to the left, and the Coke splashed and hit the trash can, and he was looking down at the ground like he didn't even realize that that's how the movie affected him. And then a couple behind them was going, okay, what's for dinner? And I realized that that's how everybody reacts to any sort of religion, and it either hits you and it affects you or it doesn't, and that's just the way it is. And for me, it really hit me, and so I'll never forget, being changed by that. So that's the biggest influence in my life, and the biggest rudder and the biggest, filter for me is looking through that. And I'm constantly, you constantly learn, and, nobody's perfect, and Christians aren't perfect, and, but I've learned a lot from having that viewpoint, and those experiences. How
old are you when that happened? Ballpark?
53.
When that happened? So this is recent?
Oh, no.
No, I said, how old are you when that happened? When that?
Oh, I was kind of raised Roman Catholic, but really never went to church, never understood any of that. And then I read a book called Case for Christ. And the Case for Christ book, when I was 17 or 18, and again, it was my friend Steve going, come to church, read this book. And that book, really hit me. It was a agnostic guy that actually had broke the story. There's a movie out now about it, but he broke the story about the Pintos blowing up. And his wife and he were, long story short, were at dinner. Their daughter was choking on some food, and somebody saved their daughter, and they said, thank you. And the woman said, well, no problem. Jesus told me to be here tonight. And they were like, he went like, there's no Jesus. He was agnostic, totally. They both were. And so he went out for 2 years to disprove Christianity, and in so doing, became a believer and wrote this book. And one of the chapters was who would die for a lie, and that really hit me. He makes the point, like, if Jesus was really buried and there was 12 apostles that all went to different parts of the world and all died martyrs' deaths, you'd think one of them would go, oh yeah, we made it up, he's over there, but they all died martyrs' deaths. So who would die for a lie? That chapter really hit me and became my first awareness of, well, who is this? What is the story? What is Christianity? What does that mean? So that really got me down a path of, who is this guy?
Right.
And so, all right, well, if he's real, then what does that mean?
Sure. But that started you on your journey when you were around 17.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your one unanswerable question? Like, do you have a question you always seem to be asking yourself?
It's a good question, but again, I think with my faith, I never have the what ifs or what about this, or I don't really have any questions that I'm asking myself, again, because I don't live like that. I don't really have a what if or what happens tomorrow if this happens, or I kind of live daily by faith, and it sounds weird, but
no.
But that's how I live, and it's enabled me to not have to ask myself or be haunted by, well, gosh, if this just happened to me, my life would be great.
Right.
You know,
right.
I feel like the story of Job, he lost everything, and he still was like, all right, well, you're still God. And, I just feel like that's been the blessing of discovering this, is that if I have $1 trillion in the bank account tomorrow, or I have zero, I still I feel pretty at peace,
Right, right. Somebody, I've had a couple of people express that as the difference between happiness is like fleeting, because you could be happy today because you got X, and then you're unhappy tomorrow because you don't have X, or whereas like contentment and joy is like permanent. Yeah.
I did a gig with Jennifer down in South Africa, and I'll never forget meeting people who had probably the poorest people on the planet, and they were so joyful. And I was really moved by that. Like, wow, they have nothing. But you know what? They don't know they have nothing.
Right. Right.
So there was this serious spiritual joy that they had, and they weren't Christian or anything. I mean, I don't know what they believed, but it was just it was really affecting. As well as when I went to the Native American reservation in Pine Ridge too. I saw that too, and a lot of the people, sometimes the poorest people are the happiest people, and the wealthiest people are the most miserable people, because they're sold this.
Well, money's not a ticket to any, money does not buy you happiness, man.
Yeah, Jim Carrey had that famous line. He said, "I wish everybody could be as rich and famous as I am, just so they can realize it's not about that."
Yeah, I remember that.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was cool. I remember I went to the Dominican Republic to visit a buddy of mine. He was Dominican. He lived in the States, but his parents bought a house there. 1985, 6 or something like that. And we were driving or walking through sort of like a forest area, and it's right next to Haiti. And there was a Haitian woman with her 2 or 3 kids. She was selling cashews, and the 3 kids were pretty much naked, literally playing with sticks and stones. And I'll never forget that, because I was just like, that's what they, like what you just said about these people in Africa, it was just like, wow. They were just playing, they were like kittens, just playing, and
right.
It was pretty,
it wasn't Toys R Us, and we got to get $3,000 and a credit card to get Christmas.
Yeah, and I have this already. I need the next one. It was just like very, very humbling to see that, and I always had that vision in my mind. There's a couple of things, like that. So
it's interesting. That's almost an analogy to the natural state, how we're supposed to be.
Well, I know we're not supposed to be like this in the freaking phone 24/7. That I know.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be naked playing with sticks, but
no, but
meaning the innocence of that, the
unencumbered by what you don't have kind of shit.
Right, exactly.
Is really, and I don't, and it was just really weird. I can't even explain the feeling I had there. It was like humbling, but it was. I guess I was really empathetic too, because I wanted to help these people, like beyond buying some cashews from them, and I felt kind of like I was in a strange country, didn't speak the language, and it was just the whole thing.
Maybe you were driving off and they felt sorry for you.
Yeah, it could have been, man. Right. That gringo sucker.
Yeah, exactly.
Could have been, man. You never know.
Put your clothes back on, kids.
Yeah. Touche, man. That's a good one. You never know. Dude, last question, but you kind of answered it. What's your definition of happiness?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think for most people, it's finding what we love to do and do that without any sort of sense of how much money am I going to make. Because if you find something you're truly passionate about doing, whether it be music or whatever, do that, because the money, life will work itself out. Yeah. But most people don't. They do something as a hobby that they love to do, and they work 60 hours a week doing something they hate.
They hate doing,
That's not much of life, you know what I mean? That's really not, I've taken jobs and put the guitar down and done other things in my life, and not been happy doing them, but I did them at the time, but I always wanted to get back to doing what I was passionate about doing. And so that's really the key to happiness. If you're happy doing something every day, can't wait to get up and do it, then that's being happy. It doesn't matter how much money you're making,
It's interesting. Musicians are very authentic, and that's one of the nice, I feel very lucky that I talk to them, and it's
a great podcast for that,
Well, everybody's so freaking real. It's like, some people are, obviously certain people are not as comfortable, they're a little guarded, but everybody's so authentic, and it's real nice. So with that in mind, man, I can't thank you enough because you're a totally cool dude. And
thank you, man. I had a great time. This is awesome.
How could people send you money, find you online? You've got an amazing YouTube channel. Your CD's awesome. Everybody needs to get turned on to Doug Bossi right now. So follow these orders.
Well, I have a YouTube site everything's up for free. That basically Doug Bossi and Echo Circle is the YouTube channel. I do have the CDs available on iTunes, CD Baby, all that stuff. It's also streaming on Spotify, Rhapsody. I'm not so interested in making money off the thing as more as just having people listen to it and enjoy it. Really, it's really the goal of it is to kind of get it out there. It's funny these days when you put something out. Nowadays people can just grab it and put it out and give it away. And I remember all of us, with records and cassettes, making cassettes for our friends, and that's kind of like how I look at it. So, yeah, you can just look up Doug Bossi and Echo Circle, and that channel also has new instrumental playlists and scoring playlists and other things that I do as well.
Great.
So it kind of overall,
And what if someone listening to this wants to check out your sync and licensing work and your movies and all that stuff? Where do they go?
That's the ispymusic.com address, and we have a music library app that you can kind of click on the CDs and you hear a little montage of every CD and some of our work up there, and so that's that side of what I do.
Awesome. All right, so let me say that again. Check out Doug Bossi on YouTube. He's got a great channel. First of all, his name is Doug, D-O-U-G. If you can't spell that, please find another place to listen to. Boss, I can't help you. Doug, his last name is Bossi, B as in boy, O-S-S-I. Check him out on YouTube. He's got a great channel there for both music and his videos. And that's amazing that you make those videos yourself, man. That's I know what goes involved. Just the editing of that is monstrous.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is pretty amazing, talented, editor and producer on that kind of stuff. So he does all the video work. And we're actually working on a DougBossi.com website finally, so I could have one spot that you can go to for links to the lobotomy stuff as well as my solo stuff and the TV stuff that I do.
And this will be out end of November, early December. So it's Doug Bossi. Maybe it'll be out by DougBossi.com.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It should be out then. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Go to DougBossi.com, B-O-S-S-I.
Yeah.
Check him out, ispymusic.com. Anybody wanting to get tracks, licensing, or sync work for movies, or if you want to talk with Doug to see if he's got any writers that can do a mariachi dance in Yiddish or something, and he's got a guy. He's got a guy. Hey, man, I really appreciate. You're an awesome guy. I'm really glad we got to connect, and I hope you stay in touch. And
awesome.
thank you, man, for being you. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Again, thanks to Doug for spending his time with us. He's awesome. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com and sign up to get notified about future episodes along with some cool stuff for guitar players. Now, be nice. That's what it's all about, right? Be nice. Go play your guitar and have some fun. And thank you for listening again. Till next time, I'm out. Peace, everybody. Doug, you're the best. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.